Hi, welcome to Beyond Floating podcast. I'm Vanessa Worthington from Art of Floating, and with me I have Ken Camplin from Quantum Floats and our special guest, Brigit. How are you guys doing, guys?
Great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Enjoying this weather of raininess today.
I'm good too.
Good.
Uh,
That's what I put on the list.
Lipstick is good.
Yeah, so how are we doing? Brigit, what makes you, well, I have a question for you. So what brought you to Quantum Floats?
So I was introduced to Ken by Glenn Williams, his partner in his law firm. And I was a yogi, and everybody knows that in my business world. And he said, "You need to meet Ken Camplin. He's at Quantum Floats." I was like, "Oh, floating, what's that?" So we made an appointment, and I came down to the float center. And of course, Ken said, "You can definitely float today." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to float." I think I looked it up a little bit, and I looked at it more as like a meditative thing. So I came with my to-do list and showed up at Quantum Floats.
Ooh, can I tell the story from
Yes,
here?
you can.
Um, so we do the orientation, and it's just like, you do one orientation at a float center, you do 1,000 of them.
Exactly. Yeah, you
I
play.
noticed it takes a turn, and it starts to look a little strange, at least to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because Bridget reaches in and pulls out a folded piece of paper, like eightfold, and I just said, "What's on the paper?" And Bridget said, "It's my to-do list." And I said, "Well, what's the to-do list for?" And Bridget said, "It's the things she's going to get accomplished in the float tank." Well, of course, knowing, how that was going to turn out, I, instead of saying anything, I just said, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you have fun with that."
Okay. What were the things that you had on your to-do list?
Well, I was trying to get more clients, and I was trying to close business, and I was trying to figure out ways to meet new people. And the list goes on and on and on.
Oh, okay. And so you were gonna check them while you were floating, like
I
check
was
them off.
going
Yeah.
to try to be more creative. One time I
Yeah.
hopped on and I told them I came up with a whole new business plan for my business.
Yeah.
Yeah, slowing me down was definitely one of Ken's goals, which
Right.
happens every now and then.
Because all the thought and behavior is coming from a place below the level of awareness, which is what the place, let's just say, you visit in the float tank, the depth of thought where actions come from. So I kind of chuckled to myself that you were going to logically deal with something that has nothing to do with logic, and I thought it was kind of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my fun says I'm his material.
So after that, what happened?
So,
Yeah.
I enjoyed floating. It was very nice. It slowed me down. I definitely felt lighter. I felt good. And so then I came back and I floated a couple times. And every time I came, it was always meaningful, relaxed. I started reading the book of the shaman, which I'm not sure who that is.
The Office of
The
Shaman.
Office of Shaman.
We have a copy
Which
somewhere here.
was amazing. And I realized that there's ways you can reprogram things in your life. So I was having some issues at the time with the person I was dating, and I would always get very anxious if he was late. And so from reading the book, I kind of tried to do like get really quiet and figure out why. And it's amazing when you do that and ask myself the question, why am I so anxious? Well, anyway, long story short, when I was younger and I was about 7, I had a little boyfriend that he actually had died of leukemia. And so because of that, I always worried that people weren't going to come back. So, but and this sounds it's I'm giving you like this much of like an hour meditation and realizing that you can go back and actually rewrite an experience. And so that day I was just like, gosh, I think it talks about what would you change in that moment. And my parents just didn't really tell me a lot. They just kind of said someone like had passed away and he had cancer and he was sick, but they didn't really go any further. So I mourned, but as a child at 7, probably not the best way. And then that day I kind of talked to myself like our friend would say, what would Queen Elizabeth do if that was her child? How would she explain that? That was another one. funny little things. And I more or less parented myself in that moment that people do come back, people do pass away, but I was able to address that thought. And then after that, I really never was anxious when someone was late again. I know that sounds bizarre, but I wasn't. And so I floated a couple times, and I took a break, and then I floated a couple times, and then one time I called Ken just to see how he was doing. He's like, "How are you doing?" He kept asking me to do an introduction to the art of rewriting, and I had the kids, and I have legitimate excuses.
I like how you said the legitimate excuses. Like, there are real excuses.
I have my excuses.
But I did. I had the kids, I had this, I had that. And I just, a whole weekend, just sit around, talk, whatever. So finally I call him. It was back in November, and it was like a Thursday or a Friday. He's like, so he says, what are you doing this week? And I said, I actually don't have a plan. He goes, do you want to do the introduction to the art of rewriting? I said, absolutely. So I did. And he's like, I want you to come up with a goal. So what do you think I had? I had a business goal, how I was going to make a decent amount of money in the next year. And so I'll do the art. I had read the book, which I, again, highly recommend if you're going to understand any of this new language. And I ended up coming up with a goal where what I do, why we go to work, is to provide for my family. But it really wasn't producing the results I needed to. So from that experience, and again, it's really deep, I realized that maybe there was other ways I could be using my talents to take care of my family. And through a couple of turn of events, and I definitely think it was a shift in my perspective of how I can provide for my family, I was given the opportunity to, again, work with another fabulous attorney and create my own business, which is Blue Water Wave. And it's using my ability to connect people and introduce them so that they do business. And obviously, it's profitable for all. But I wouldn't have been open to that opportunity because I was so focused on paying tribute to my father, who became disabled when he was in his 40s, and I sold disability insurance, life insurance, and I was in an advisory position at Northwestern Mutual. But then I realized that, that's really nice to do something in honor of somebody, but at the end of the day, if I'm not taking care of my children, is that really working? So that's when I made the shift. I started working on my new business, and then I started having this kind of like little string that went through all my communications with all the people I dealt with, whether it was a contract, whether it was relationships, or whether it was my business. There was this thing that I didn't do well, and that was called communicate with everybody. I was really good at telling people what to do. I helped run companies, but when it came to partnerships, I need a little work there. So I did a rewrite. And they basically said, all right, what's your goal? And I said, what's the goal? Anyway, your poor father is all I can say. Yeah, we got the goal down. And what I ended up coming up with is that I was going to be patient in relationships, because I thought everything happened in a
split second,
which is a joke amongst everybody that I discuss my life with. And patience, I was like, patience? Who would want to be patient? Like, what a ridiculous word.
Yeah, no.
Well,
we don't have time for patient, man. Girlfriend, we have to go.
So there were things they would laugh. They'd be like, Rome wasn't built in a minute. A New York minute, Brigit.
Yeah.
So I started realizing that being patient in my relationships was important. And then, so I did my rewrite. It was very meaningful. The other thing I did in relationships was, one, either I demanded exactly what I wanted. And then when I started discussing this with my friends about my rewrite and how I'm like, oh, can you imagine? They think I'm demanding. They're like, you are, Brigit. Really? So I was starting to get other people's opinions. And then the other thing I did, if I wasn't demanding, I would actually just go, oh, sure, whatever you want, which that doesn't work either. But you kind of have to do the dance in the middle. So that's where I'm at right now.
So
and
you
I realized
did like a dichotomy, like in that we cover that thing in that concept in the introduction of the rewrite is like one of the tools to communicate is, we have to get rid of the dichotomy. It's not black or white. How many sides does a coin have? Is it salt? If you have salt, then the opposite would be, pepper. It's not thyme or rosemary or anything like that. It's pepper. There's no more condiments, salt and pepper. That's it.
I have a question. Okay, because if people come through the float, you've been hanging out at the float center for a few months.
I hang out here. It's a very relaxing place.
And people come in here with all manner of let's just call them chains on their neck and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
except they don't realize that they have chains because they've been carrying them their whole life. Yet
Mm-hmm.
when they start to peel them off because they realize that they've been carrying chains without knowing that they're carrying them, when someone gives them a hand like they've given to you, it eases life. I mean, is that
Mm-hmm.
your sense too, that things are more easygoing for you now?
So I take a step back now and I just go about my relationships and my business very differently. I have not arrived, just so you know. You don't arrive. This is not magic. This is
Are you sure?
work. Take it.
You
And
don't.
it's not happening in no New York minute at all.
Yeah.
It's more like
Yeah.
I'm building a new city or something, which is a great.
Underground.
Yes. So yeah, it definitely has changed the way I communicate with people. And I let everybody know in my world that I'm working on this, and they all let me know they thought it was a good idea.
Okay.
And I see people that even my daughter, when she met Ken, she's like, my mom's different. And even my friend Carol Ann, she's just like, whatever you're doing, keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like you can have a vibrant personality and love a lot of people, but if you have some blocks in your communication, it doesn't work. And that whole thing about the black and white, I was in insurance. And quite honestly, I work with a lot of attorneys, and I was just like, no, things are black or white. And then I realized there's gray. It was a very different concept for me.
Yeah.
So
Girlfriend, there's purple too.
and there's
Yeah.
purple, right? So yeah, it's just definitely been eye-opening to think the way you thought your entire life may not be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good thing about when you float and, you know, you have Ken or anybody that's there at the float center that knows the language that we teach, to help you like unravel the stuff that you're thinking about. Because sometimes, like, I mean, you meditate and stuff, but there are people that, you know, go float and then they talk to themselves. And so whatever they did tell themselves then they just said it again. And so then that communication, they're like, oh yeah, I could, like, you know, you were saying, yeah, I can communicate, like I can talk, like, because people think that communicating is just, you know, spitting out words.
Yep. Yeah. No, we have some unwavering fundamental premises of just how the brain works, kind of thing, that we know when they're coming in here. The Brigits and everybody is in the world, they just simply can't see what they're doing. Or
No.
maybe a better way to say that is you can't see the thoughts you use to look at the world.
Mm-hmm.
Using them, and they may be colored with I can't do and I'm not good enough, or I'm angry, as was some of the ones that I experienced when I got into this. But it's really helpful to have another set of eyes to help you walk you through it, so that you can find out for yourself whether it works for you. It sounds like you've found some things now that you do that work better than they did before.
I mean, you just go about so many things. And then I started discussing them. And, you know, because now I have this like group of people that we talk the same language. And like, what do you think about this? They're like, you said that, or you did that. And honestly, it was the only way I knew. Like it was, that was all I knew I had to do. It was one way.
Yep.
Anyway.
It's interesting when you said about losing your friend at 7 years old. I lost a friend when I was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me 25 years to actually realize that the way that I mourned him as a small child was to, oh, let's throw a party. And, you know, like, I didn't want to deal with the fact that he wasn't there anymore. And as a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, you don't understand that that's your way of coping with that loss, because, you know, people are not supposed to go. You know, old people are supposed to leave us, not our friends or young people. So that's interesting, because we all have coped with death or with loss in a different way. So and that has marked us. You know, that's something that has marked our thinking and how we program the lost or waiting for someone or something like that. So that's interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and I hear that you are also doing an MBO, right?
Yep. Started that lovely little project. That's been really interesting.
Yeah.
Trying to get me to talk about how I'm going to talk to my employees. I want to tell them what I'm going to do. How I'm going to do that. And that's just honestly 3 weeks in, and I'm just getting, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Just remember that the MBO is a map of how you want to approach that main objective of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a different language than we know, but it's really the how of how your business is going to run.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm not done with that yet. So I think on the other side, I'll be a little bit lighter.
Yeah, we'll get there. So,
So
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Brigit.
you are so welcome. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yes, I'm running out
Okay.
to another meeting, of course.
Yes.
I'm going to meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no
just yeah, you can't like you have to like ease into the meeting. Don't run or like walk into it. Yeah.
One of my new things is to be gracious, and gracious people don't run places; they walk slowly.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Just remember Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, exactly.
I've not seen that woman run at all ever.
And she deals with things graciously, and it's possible.
Yes, exactly. So, well, thank you so much, Quantum Floats, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
You
Bye,
too.
floating.
Bye.